For almost a decade now, Formula One cars have had a big problem. So since the introduction of the 2014 rules and emphasized by the 2017 rules, which gave us the wide-body cars we raced in 2021, we have had a massive problem in almost any track when it comes to overtaking or cars following each other without the aid of DRS or other systems. So this is the problems that Formula One are trying to solve with the 2022 regulations, not only on the aerodynamic side, but also with the engine, chassis and tires. So in this new series for the channel, we are going to take a look at the 2022 set of regulations and see how it compares to the outgoing 2021 regulations and explore exactly the ways in which it's going to help improve racing and overtaking, and how these new regulations are going to shape the next era of Formula One. So in this video we are going to explore the aerodynamics of this new generation of cars, but for that I'm going to need to make a few drawings. So with that said, back to the desk. Okay, so right here we are taking a look at two pictures of the 2022 Formula One car. Now I've chosen these pictures because they show basically every single angle of the car, so now let's do this. Okay, so starting to take a look at the 2022 cars, you can see that basically there are a lot of changes, but there are some key areas of change. And I'm going to define those key areas as being the rear wing, of course, the floor, which is the most important one, the front wing, and the wheel covers. So, and in the wheel covers, I'm going to include the new wheel fairings that we are taking a look at. So taking a look at these new aerodynamic surfaces and starting from the front wing, you can see something very different from the 2021 spec of wings, which is that the wings come right until the nose. So in 2021, you used to have what was called the Y250 vortex, and what it meant was that from a distance of about 250 millimeters from the center plane of the car, which is this line right here, you could not have any elements on the front wing. Now, of course, that's changing for 2022 because you see that the wing comes right up until the nose. And this is a big change for Formula One because if you know aerodynamics, you know that a sharp corner like the tip of a Formula One wing, like this, coming into contact with the air, will generate a vortex, which is an area of air filled with energy. And engineers love this for your own cars, but this is really bad for other cars because a vortex filled with energy really disturbs the car that's behind. And one of the goals of the 2022 regulations was to end these kinds of vortices. So that's one area where they removed it. So now the front wing comes right until the nose cone and will actually touch it, and there's no way that the teams can break this rule. So this is one way where the front wing is changing. And something that I found also a little bit interesting was this part right here. So this part is not on the show car that Formula One showed, which is actually the car I've got on my monitor right here. This part is not there. So this part is only on the render that they launched. And I find this very interesting because structurally I'm not seeing how they are going to do this, because the front wing is actually coming down and then in front of the nose, which is very weird, and I don't know if many teams are going to opt by this concept. I've seen the pictures that I launched in my previous video where you see Mercedes with their show car and they don't have this. I don't think many teams will actually use this because the downforce that you could generate from this part right here will be almost negligible, and I think that the fragility of the front wing will increase a lot if you put this, so don't expect a lot of teams doing this. Just a quick stop. If you're enjoying this video and are starting to enjoy this series, well, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We are almost hitting 1,000 subscribers, which is my target for the beginning of the 2022 Formula One season. So if you could help me achieve that by hitting the subscribe button, it would be amazing. So with that said, back to the content. And the next element that you can see coming from front to back is these wheel covers. So wheel covers are not a new thing in Formula One, and they were used in 2009. So look at the picture of this Braun GP and you are going to see wheel covers. So it's pretty obvious why teams want to use wheel covers, because if you think about it, the wheel and the rim are a part that's rotating at a very high speed, and this really disturbs the air. So instead of having a concave shape like this inside of the wheel, if you can have just a flat surface for the air to go to, this is going to reduce drag and it's going to reduce the dirty air a lot. And this is why Formula One put this in the regulations for 2022. They are not a new innovation for the sport. Even in 2009, we knew that these were better than leaving the wheels open, but they were outlawed just as with many things because of cost reasons. But now they are going to be standardized across all cars, and they are actually going to have LEDs on the wheel covers, which is going to be pretty amazing to see, because I don't know if Formula One is going to put some graphics there or if the teams are going to be able to put wherever they want there, but it opens up some really funny possibilities. But the most interesting part surrounding the wheels is actually this part on top of the wheel right here, and you can see that this part comes down until the bottom of the wheel. Now, what this part is one of the most genius things I have seen in Formula One. So this part is designed to control the wheel wake. So you can imagine that a wheel rotating at 300 kilometers per hour will disturb the air around it a lot, especially because Formula One cars don't have wheel covers, so they are open wheel prototypes, so they don't have anything to control the wake of the wheel. And you can imagine that putting this thing right here will just cut the wheel wake, and once the wheel is rotating, it will stop most of the wake on the front of the wheel from traveling to the back of the wheel. And this is one part where this used to be done by the Bargeboards. So the Bargeboards you can see on your screen right now, if you remember from the 2021 regulations, were these really intricate parts of the car, which were right here in the part where the beginning part of the Venturi tunnel is right now. And these parts were designed to control the wheel wake. So you can imagine that once the wheel is rotating, it really disturbs the air in this section right here because of the rotation, and also in the front of the wheel. And these covers on the top and the bottom of the wheels are designed to kind of break this flow. So now the flow on the front and the back of the wheel won't be able to mix, and you can imagine that by breaking this flow, it will make the flow much less powerful. So this is an outstanding way to help the aerodynamics with a very simple solution that won't cause a lot of dirty air. And the reason that we needed to get rid of the barge boards was because the intricate aerodynamics in this section right here on the barge boards were really getting out of hand, and the costs of developing the barge boards were really too much. So now, replacing the barge boards, that area of the car is gone entirely, and we have what is the opening for the Venturi tunnels, which are the most amazing innovation for the 2022 cars that you can imagine. So unlike the 2021 cars that had the flat floor and the underfloor of the car had to be flat, 2022 cars are going to have a floor that mostly resembles this shape right here. So they are going to have a wide opening. So imagine that this line right here will be the track. So 2022 cars are going to have this wide opening, then they are going to compress here in the middle, and then they are going to open up again in the end. So what this will generate is it will generate a low pressure region right here. So in most airflows, there's an inverse relation between the pressure and the speed. So you can imagine that if the speed increases, then the pressure must decrease, and if the speed decreases, then the pressure must increase in any controlled volume of air. So you can see that by having a big volume of air right here, we are going to have a slow speed, and this is going to generate a high pressure area. And then by changing the volume underneath the car in this area right here to be smaller, we are going to force the air to go faster, and this is going to decrease the pressure. And what does a decrease of the pressure in the bottom of the car means? It means that the force is going to be down, and it will generate downforce. Now, this is one amazing way to generate downforce, and it's the most efficient way to generate downforce without having any disturbed air, because if you can imagine, Formula One cars throw their dirty air all to the top. So by generating clean downforce on the floor, it's really the best way to do it, and the best way to ensure that the downforce the car is generating is not affected by the car in front. And so this is the most genius way to produce downforce, and I honestly think that Formula One should have had this for longer. And now finally coming to the rear wing, as with the front wing, the airflow control on the rear wing will be lessened. So in 2021, you might remember that the front wing was not curved like this, and it had these big end plates at the end, which really helped to control the airflow. Now the 2022 cars get completely rid of these end plates, but attention, they don't get rid of the RS, even though it's not in this picture. The RS will be in the 2022 regulations. But by getting rid of the end plates right here, you are making so that the airflow is completely free to do whatever it wants, and it's not as controlled. So the reason that the end plates were there were to prevent the air on top of the wing to mix with the air on the bottom of the wing. And the end plates put a solid barrier here to help this not happen and to reduce the drag, because by having the air mixing, you are going to generate a lot of drag. And in this new generation of cars, we are not going to have the end plates. We are still going to have this curvature right here, which is trying to mimic an end plate, but it's not really going to have the same effectiveness. So expect the cars to be a lot more rear limited than in 2021, because they are going to produce a lot less rear downforce. And same with the front wing. Even though the front wing will be a little bit bigger, I think that the simpler way in which it's going to be built is going to limit the downforce. So what you can expect is that less downforce will be produced by the front and rear wings, and more downforce will be produced by the floor. So overall, the kind of distribution of downforce over the car will be controlled more by the floor than by any of the wings, which is going to be a good thing because, as I said, the floor is not really affected by any car in front or behind. And so this is going to provide for better racing if teams don't break the entire rules purpose, which is entirely possible because, you know, Formula One teams, they are always trying to look for loopholes. So this is probably something that will happen. Now, of course, that there are some disadvantages with this kind of generation of cars producing all of the downforce with the floor, because it's going to make the cars a lot faster in high-speed corners where that floor is going to be fed with nice clean air even if you're behind another car. So expect top speeds to increase in high-speed corners, but I just think that this generation of cars is going to be a little bit clumsy in low-speed corners, because in a low-speed corners kind of circuit, you really want the front wing to be producing most of the downforce, because you want the car to bite when you brake and then turn in. And if the front wing is not going to be generating most of the downforce, then the car's ability to bite to the track and make that front end really pointy like Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton will not be there as much. So this really opens up the possibility for some other drivers that enjoy maybe a more balanced car to do better. But I think that overall we will see these cars slide a lot more in slow speed corners. So they are going to lose a lot of speed in the low speed corners when compared to the 2021 cars, which were already quite slow when compared to the early 2000s cars. And I just think that Formula One is really losing its grip on low-speed corners, and this is something that needs to change, because they are often some of the best corners in a lot of circuits. And just look at street circuits like Monaco and Baku. These cars are going to be so clumsy around there that I cannot even imagine. And if I have one critique to this regulation of Formula One cars, is that they are not going to perform well on low-speed corners. So those are the main aerodynamic concepts for the 2022 generation of cars. Now, overall, I think that this will be a major upgrade over the outgoing generation of 2021 cars, and I'm just excited to see how engineers are going to find new ways to make these cars as fast as possible. Now, in my opinion, I think that even though all the headlines are saying that these cars are going to be slower, I expect engineers to get these cars on the same speeds as 2020 and 21 cars in about 1 to 2 years. So by the end of 2023 to 2024, we can expect to see some cars that are going to be breaking records again. So don't let that be a stopper for the 2022 rules. Even though the cars can be a little bit slower, the racing is going to be much better. And I think in a few years, they are going to recover all of the downforce. So overall, I think that this is a huge upgrade for Formula One. And as I said, I'm a huge fan of generating the downforce through the Venturi tunnels and the underfloor of the car. So I'm really hopeful for this generation of Formula One cars, and hopefully I can get to work in a Formula One team while they are still active until 2025. So with that said, that's been it for this video. Stay tuned for the new series on the 2022 cars and breaking down now the engines and the tires after this, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, you can watch my latest video right here. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot, and I'm almost hitting my 1000 subscriber target. So with that said, this has been it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!